Hello friends, I welcome you all to this session on C++ programming. So basically, let's say I am having a question that create a class kinetics to calculate the distance traveled by a body using uniform acceleration. Now, the moment you see this particular question, you will be greeted with this particular term class. So what is basically a class? So far you have seen structures. In a very similar way, when we club data and the member function, or right now we don't call them member function, right now I'll calling them as functions. So if you keep them in a single capsule, that means inside one particular user defined data type, then that user defined data type will be called as a class. But now you can argue, sir, previously we have also seen that data and functions you have kept inside one particular structure, but now you are not saying that that is a structure, now you are saying that this is a class. Why? Because there is a difference. When I say structure, then inside the structure whatsoever you have written is by default public. So there are, in case of structures, there are chances that the mishandling of data can happen. There also we have in C++, you have this capacity of encapsulating data and functions together in structures. Whereas also the same thing is happening in class, but the difference is that in case of structure, everything is public. Now, this is the difference when it comes to classes. So classes is a user, basically it is a user defined data type in which data and functions both are kept, and by default everything is private. Remember this. This is very important, that by default everything is private in case of a class. That means if you want to access anything from that particular class, then it is not permitted until or unless you make that particular part to be public. That is very important. So so if you want to understand classes more, then you have to look this particular figure. Now, if you look this particular figure, only focus on this particular part. So this is basically a blueprint of a house. So where the dining hall will be, where the living hall will be, or where the kitchen will be. So it is there. And right now this blueprint is not consuming any space because that is on the piece of paper. You can fold it and keep it in your pocket, no problem. But once this blueprint comes into reality, means once a house is built on that particular blueprint, then that particular thing is what we call as an object. So classes, they are nothing but data types or user defined data types or simply a template. These are the templates which doesn't require any space, and based on these templates objects are created. If you want to understand it deeper, then you can think in this way, that previously we were saying that int a. So the question is, does int exist? Yes, it exists. So does it require any memory during the runtime? No, not at all. But the moment you say int a, so this particular variable is created. Once it is created, then the memory will be allocated. In the similar way, if you are creating a class, that will not be occupying any memory, but the moment you create a variable of that particular class, variable of a class means object of that particular class, then the memory will be assigned. Okay, so that is how a classes and objects looks like. Very similar to structure, but slight difference that everything is private by default in case of a class, so that the mishandling of data does not happens there. So here comes the importance of importance of access specifiers. So in case of classes, we have on basically private, public and protected. Right now we will not be focusing here, we will be only focusing on private and public. So to understand this, let us do what? Let us create the class for the question, this one. So let us create the class for this particular question. Now what this is saying, this says that you have to create a class. The name of the class should be what? It should be kinetics. Okay, and it should have data members, initial velocity, acceleration and time. So U, A and T should be taken as the data members. And inside that class there is a function which is evaluating this, that is distance traveled. And then they create a member function to compute the and display. Okay, so one will be calculating, another one will be displaying. That's it. Then you have to create an object of this class and display the result. Now let us do this one by one. Let us think what it is saying, that I am having an object kinetics. It is having 1, 2 and 3 data members. What are they? U, A and T. And then you are having some member function to evaluate the displacement and the one to display. Remember that the member function doesn't require any memory. They are there, but they don't require any memory. Only the objects have the memory. Only the data of that particular object will be having memory. So the memory occupied by any object is depending on the data members. So that is what you should understand. Now once this is understood to you, then the next task is that how to define a class. So it is very similar to what we call structures. So a class, then the name of class. So what was the name of this particular class? It was kinematics, not kinetics. So it is not kinetic, it is kinematics. So let us write it, kinematics. Now inside this particular, what are there? U, A and T. How can we declare them? We can declare them as float or double, whatever is your choice. Then you should have inside the class member functions. So one is your S, which let's say will be returning float and evaluating or returning ut plus half at square. That's it. And another one is simply displaying the result. So what I'll say, C out, what? Simply S. That's it, and that's complete your class. So in the next lecture, what we'll do, we will create this particular class and we'll see that how public and private works. Thank you very much for watching it.